Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian M. Hauser. Yes, even with this mustache, I am still Brian M. Hauser.
Are you though? Are you really? Is that really him?
I swear when I'm now looking in seeing myself on this, it's distracting. It's very silly. But my wife hates it, but everyone else seems to be enjoying it. So let's go Mariners, man. Let's go Mariners.
You're all in. I love it.
Let's go.
You're all in.
Did you have a favorite? We're talking to my number one draft pick. If I could have had anybody as a guest on this show, it would have been Matt Hasselbeck here for another episode here on Tuesdays. Matt, did you have a favorite baseball team growing up?
Oh, yeah. Diehard Red Sox fan. Might be hard to hear. Yeah, I wanted to be Roger Clemens. I wanted to be Wade Boggs. I wanted to be like all the guys. But Roger Clemens was really my guy. And I was a catcher. And, that was kind of my dream was to, catch for Roger Clemens someday. Jim Rice was another favorite of mine. But then I came to Seattle, and then I felt like, this would be really weird if I'm rooting for the Red Sox while I'm friends with all these Mariners. And so I never, ever once rooted for the Red Sox, against the Mariners or whatever. But what really screwed it up for me is when all my Mariners, buddies, acquaintances, whatever, became Yankees, because they all went to the Yankees at some point. And then it was really man, these are good dudes, but I could never root for the Yankees. It was just a weird, I think the final straw was when Raul Ibanez went to the Yankees. I was like, all right, I quit, I give up. But no, it was a great thing as a kid. I played many, many different sports, and that's what I would encourage a lot of kids to do. I would have chose baseball as my best sport. Baseball didn't choose me back as the best sport. So it's, it's cool. And I think when you play a sport as a kid, it helps with kind of your fandom as an adult too. You respect, wow, how hard would that be? Or you just were into it growing up. You understand the history of it and the rivalries and, all the stuff, stadiums. It's fun. It's awesome.
I mean, you got to experience pro football and the amazing logistical event of traveling, week to week and packing up everything and going on these planes and doing that. And then you go and you have 7 days to the next. Can you imagine being a baseball player or an NBA player and just going city to city, night after night, for weeks on end and just traveling for months, just the travel logistics of that and the exhaustion of that? I don't know if people really get it.
Well, I was in college in Boston, so I would see all the teams come through. And so I saw how some of those sports handle it. It's nothing like football. I mean, nothing. You'd see those guys out at night, it was nuts. I mean, NBA guys, Major League Baseball guys, it's nothing like that in football. It's basically 8, back then it was 8 road games and you're home that same day. When I ended up, when I was playing for the Tennessee Titans, every game was close. We were literally home in an hour. I'd be home for dinner, play the 12 o'clock Central Time game, home for dinner with my family. In Seattle, it's hey, what 2 movies are we going to watch on this trip? Kind of with those road trips. But no, it is a grind. And I also would just say, having been in the clubhouse of Major League Baseball games before a game, whatever, throwing out a first pitch or just visiting, it's just wild to me. They're just social and they're cool and they're hanging out. It's they're getting ready to play, I don't know, a round of golf or something. They're serious and they're intense and they're focused. But at the same time, it's yeah, you're an outsider. Welcome in. I cannot imagine that in an NFL locker room. You don't even want, some teams, you don't even want the guys that aren't dressing that day to be there. I remember when I was on the practice squad my first year in the NFL, it was almost all right, listen, we're going to let you in the locker room for a little while, but shut up, don't say anything, don't talk, and no eye contact with any of the players. That was kind of the vibe. Stay out of the way. And if you have some Gatorade, have 1 cup, not 2. They got to be hydrated. You don't. It was sheesh, forget it. I'll go sit in the stands if you want. But that's just a difference in football for sure.
Well, and you mentioned being friends with some Mariners back in the day. It always seems to me there's a pretty small fraternity of people that know it's like to be a professional athlete. And if you're in a town with someone else that's maybe going through it, even if it's another sport, maybe that's a camaraderie that can build there. Well, how did that start, that you kind of crossed into other sports in Seattle?
Charity events and stuff like that. And really, I thought, oh, these guys are so great. They want to be my friend and all this stuff. I figured it out after a while, though. They were in a very competitive fantasy football league. For Scoop, you know what I mean? I'm like, wow, this Richie Sexton guy, what a good dude, he's inviting me over for, and then it's like, then the next guy, and then the next guy, and then like second question in. It's never the first thing they ask you, it's the second question. It's usually, so like, how many targets you think Bobby Ingram's going to get this year? You think Sean Alexander's going to carry? You're like, wait a second, what? You're totally just using me for your fantasy league. I'm on to you guys.
That's hilarious.
Well, we're being real. I don't think they really liked me. I think they just wanted the scoop.
I think it was probably a little bit of both, but yeah, this is a pretty exciting time for Mariners fans who have been long suffering. And honestly, it's not that different than your 2005 team for the Seahawks that ended a 20+ year playoff drought. Like, there hadn't been a playoff win in a long time until you ran it in against the then Redskins. And what was it like? Did you feel any of that responsibility or the weight of that drought as you guys entered that, even though you guys were the best team in football that year?
No, we felt it big time. And I don't know why, because in football, you do a really good job of just like, hey, we're going to go 1-0 this week. Like, no big deal. We're going to go 1-0. But I remember pregame before that Washington game, where they brought out all of like kind of the legends, the Steve Largents and the, basically all the guys that you looked up to, the guys that their names were in the Ring of Honor, or you heard about them, or Jim's one of my position coach. I knew all the names, and seeing them pregame, they got kind of introduced or whatever, and seeing the emotion and the passion that they had for our wild card game. Like, they hadn't won a game since Chuck Knox was the head coach in the playoffs. And like, some of those guys were tearing up. I mean, it was almost like they wanted it more than we wanted it in a way. And it was that to me, like, I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about it. Like, it was just like, oh no, like, we have to get this win. Like, there's not another option. Like, we're leaving here with a win. Like, doesn't matter. Find a way. And it was really because we felt their energy. And I would say in a similar way, like, us losing the 2005 Super Bowl to the Steelers was hard. And I felt like when the Seahawks went to New York to play the Broncos in that Super Bowl, I was like, we are winning this game. That we are going to run these dudes off the field. Like, it was like a mindset of just like, this needs to happen. I'm not even on the team. In fact, I probably was on a different team at the time, which is crazy. But like, that was the mindset. And I even remember texting the quarterback before the game, like, you have literally every Seahawk that has ever played behind you today. Like, get this done. Get it done. It was like, that was just the mindset. And I think that's what those guys did for me. The guys, back in, I don't know if it was like 84. I want to say it was like 84. It was a long time ago. Yeah, we felt it. We felt the pressure of it. And some of that's good and some of that can be a little bit bad. And you got to find your way to kind of either relax and play or just dig deep and refuse to lose.
Yeah. That's a good call out to the old Mariner slogan. Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the 2013 moment, and it hadn't really occurred to me that had meaning for you beyond, just like.
Can I tell you the best part about that?
Please.
Like, I think one of the frustrations for me is that we didn't handle the crowd noise well in the Super Bowl. Like, we just didn't handle the crowd. We weren't expecting crowd noise. It was like a neutral site. And I think one of the lessons was that, like, hey, you can actually have home field advantage in a Super Bowl. And the Seahawks did, at MetLife. Like, they had home field advantage. So when that snap went over Peyton Manning's head, it was like, I'm slamming my hand on the table. I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, let's go. That was a home field advantage on the road in New York for the Seahawks. And I'm in New York the whole week, and I'm seeing, Seahawks gear everywhere. And I'm like, oh, okay, hey, I don't know if they're going to the game, but like, we might have home field advantage. And that was an epic moment. Like, for me, it was just like, game, like, let's go, done.
It was surreal. It certainly was surreal. And let's see if the Seahawks team that's kind of brewing now maybe can bring that into focus as a possibility. I think no one thought about that entering the season, maybe outside of that locker room as a possibility, but the Seahawks now go to 3-1. They get one on the road and really were controlling this game until they weren't. And curious, you watched the game on Thursday night. What did you kind of see from the team?
Well, they got creative. I think they got creative offensively. Like there are some injuries they're working around. It's a short week, some of those types of things. But I felt like they used every different guy on the team in some way, offensively anyway. We were in, not as much with a fullback in the backfield, but they went with two tights quite a bit, like two wide receivers and two tight ends. But then at times, like which two tights, and then there were times there was three tight ends. Then all of a sudden, Brady's back there at fullback, and then it's a different form of a wide receiver. And then Arroyo and Bobo, I know one's a tight end, one's a receiver, but like the body types aren't that dissimilar. And so like if you're sitting there charting and you're Jonathan Gannon in Arizona, you're sitting there like, oh, here's who the Seahawks are, because of you go through the 3-game breakdown. But then all of a sudden they were running their same plays. So I don't think very much was different for Sam Darnold. It's like the same thing, whether it's three wides or two tights, it's the same plays. It's just, is it Cooper Kupp doing it? Is it Arroyo doing it? Is it, you got to determine. So like, the strengths evened up because there's one tight end on each side and one wide receiver on each side, but it's not really evened up because one guy's a better blocker, Barner, and then one guy's a better receiver, Arroyo. And then all of a sudden there's a little bit of emotion, and then we said Hut, and then we go. And so I just thought it was creative without being confusing.
Well, a lot of people expected when Robbie Oots, the fullback, went out and on IR that Brady Russell would just slide in and they do the same amount of 21 personnel that they had been doing. I was like, no, I think they think their tight ends are better than Brady Russell. And it turns out that's true. They ran a lot of 12, some 13. And interestingly, I looked at this, Matt, afterwards. So Seahawks haven't been running 12 personnel, two tight ends at a super high rate, but they did in this game. The interesting thing is they are the number one team in offense in the NFL when they run 12 personnel by EPA per play. Won't get into super geeky stat stuff. They're, I think, like number 3 rushing and number 4, or like number 3 passing and number 4 rushing. So they're good at both. And their pass rate is 50-50, whether they're going to run or pass. So you look at that, you look at some of the other personnel groupings where that's not the case. They're not as good at passing or as rushing. They're kind of predictable when they do one or the other. It seems like this could be a pretty useful, staple for this offense going forward.
It's what everybody wants to do. Like they want to have the two tight end package, 12 personnel, as you call it. Like that's really how the defense would always term personnel. The first number is the running back. The second number is how many tight ends are in the game. For us offensively, like we had more detail to it. So like when I was in Seattle, as an example, 2 tights, 12 personnel was Tiger, 3 wides was Zebra, 4 wides was Eagle. Like those were the base ways. And then off of that, you might have a different word. Like, you might have pony personnel, which is like technically 21 personnel, but it's a tailback and a tailback and no fullback, so it's like 2, running backs,
2 runners. Yeah.
And whatever. And you have all these different forms. So, like what you're really trying to accomplish, but to the 50-50 thing that you're talking about, so much of being in a 2 tight end set, 12 personnel, Tiger, as I like to say, like you're evened up. And so the check with me system becomes the system in those sets. And it can be run to the left, run to the right, or it can be throw, or it can be naked bootleg left or naked bootleg right. Usually what we would like to do is we would like to either run at the tightest shade, meaning the easiest double team for our O-line, or we would like to run away from your down safety. And then if we were going to use like the naked bootleg game, which I think Sam Darnold is very, very good at, we would fake it at your down safety and then be booting away. And then I always just felt like, even if they kind of like played it well as a defense, you've opened up the opportunity for the quarterback on the naked bootleg. You cover it well to run. And like, I think we've seen that with Sam Darnold as well. Like it technically was called a pass and he ends up running with the ball. and it was a fake run. Then we tried to pass, and then he runs. Like, the defense is just off balance. You can't cover it all. And then all of a sudden there's this other thing about hash marks. Like, hash marks don't matter as much in the NFL as they do in college or high school, but they matter a little bit. And then you got a right-handed quarterback. And I think one of the things the Seahawks also do well is, like, they're not afraid to boot left. Some teams, they will only boot right, or like 80% of the time to the right for a right-handed thrower. They're not afraid to go both ways. And I agree. I think this two tight ends thing is a thing. But if they can get back to a fullback, you definitely know that they want to.
Yeah, there's no doubt when Robbie Utes comes back that he'll be a significant part of this offense. An interesting thing there, Matt, is not only with two tight ends, people think, oh, well, they can run better, but you also get the chance to potentially chip on pass protection. They have guys that tight ends, tight end will tell you they have the most complicated position because they have to know all the run plays. They have to know all the pass plays. They have to know all the routes, all that. And
I don't disagree with that. I actually do agree with that. But I hate when tight ends would stay in the chip. Like, all you did was, you don't really get that much of an advantage. I wasn't a fan of it. You see teams doing it now, and I don't think they're the teams that are like really explosive. I think the teams that are explosive are the teams that are getting people out. You're an empty, and the reason you don't go an empty is because people have an automatic empty check where they blitz you. Otherwise, you'd go an empty a lot more. And the Seahawks, I think, are doing a good job of starting an empty, meaning there's no running backs in the backfield. And then, you see if they have an empty blitz check. And if they don't, then you bring the running back in the backfield. And now all of a sudden, once again, the defense is thinking and they're on their heels a little bit. But, like, to your point about tight ends versus fullbacks, there were at least two critical plays in the game to me, where there was a fullback in the game. And so Brady's in the game, and one was the touchdown run. And it's like, oh, whatever, they were on the 1 or 2 yard line. They were going to run it in. Teams struggle scoring. You see a lot of teams throwing on the 1 yard line because they don't think they can get in. So the touchdown run had a fullback in a day where there really wasn't a fullback hardly ever. And then I think there was a play late in the game in 4 minute where they're closing out the game, and they ran my favorite run play, 93 blast. They ran it to the left, and the running back, I forget exactly who the runner was. He cut it all the way back, Sean Alexander style, cut it all the way back and gashed them for an explosive in 4 minute to close out the game. And so, like, it might be like, oh yeah, fullback afterthought, our starting fullback's on the IR. To me, listen, those are two game-changing plays. They call them gap plays, game-altering plays. There's usually 5 a game for each side of the ball, and you point to them and be like, had we not made that play, it's a different outcome. Or had we made that play, it's a different outcome. So I don't think I don't think a fullback's disappearing, but you're absolutely right about how dangerous they are with the tight ends that they do have.
I'd be crazy not to ask you about one of the best fullbacks that ever played for the Seahawks, Max Strong. I mean, people know a little bit about Sean Alexander, but that was kind of an interesting backfield you had back there. What was Max Strong like on the field?
Yeah, all business. I don't think he ever blocked for a guy that wasn't a 1,000-yard rusher, like ever. Like, whether it was Sean Alexander or Ricky Waters, or even going back to Georgia when it was Terrell Davis, his career was kind of crazy. And when I came in, we were just trying to replace him over and over and over again. There was another guy, his last name was Brown. I think he was number 34. We drafted a guy in like the 3rd round, Heath Evans from Auburn. Mm-hmm. We were always trying to replace Max Strong because he was stiff, he was tight, he was old, but he was amazing. He was smart, he was physical, he was tough. He was great. And in fact, like, pass protection, if you don't have great pass protection, you have nothing. And so I would say, Sean's strength was scoring touchdowns. His strength wasn't necessarily pass pro. And so we were like probably the only team in the league that had our fullback in as our 3rd down back, but he was always in there. And then there were some blitzes that we just couldn't pick up. I played at an era where people were doing some crazy, irresponsible things as D coordinators blitzing. And we decided, or the coaching staff decided, said, hey, if they're going to be undisciplined, you can audible to a running play against their blitz and give it to our fullback. And we did that. I remember that Washington game. I think Max Strong at the time had like the longest rush in franchise history. It was like 30-something yards, 36 yards or something like that. On a Greg Williams blitz, we audible to it. It was a major play in the game. But no, a guy that doesn't get enough credit for sure. He definitely wasn't getting the Oots treatment, but he was He was epic. And there were 2 games I remember that he won for us. That one, and then a game down in San Diego, week 17 against Junior Seau's team, Rodney Harrison's team. And we gave it to him like five times in a row, and ended it with an overtime Ryan Lindell field goal. So those are 2 of my favorite games, and Max Strong was prominent. If it was a hockey game, he would have been one of the stars of the game, as they say.
Well, yeah, I always remember the Max Strong hurdle run. That was for a stiff guy. He showed a little moxie on that. We're talking to Matt Hasselbeck, Seahawks legend. Matt, this is an oddity, and you could just throw it out as like doesn't matter. But I stumbled upon this when I was looking at some numbers yesterday, and I'm curious what you think. So, the Seahawks first game of the season, they didn't play action at all. We talked about that. They just were cosplaying like some other offense. Like it wasn't them. They've been like play actioning 23, 24, 25% of the time since, right? So that's more what they are. But the interesting thing I found is when they run play action, they're blitzed more by defenses than any other offense in the NFL. Almost 60% of the time so far, they've been blitzed by the defense when they're running play action. And half of the sacks they've given up have been coming on those play action plays. Is there a chance that like they're tipping something, or that like, do you have any idea? Like, is that just a random statistical anomaly, or is there a reason that teams might identify, hey, this is going to be a play action, we're going to blitz it?
Yeah. I mean, it's a kind of a small sample size. With,
it is,
that amount of games, but no, there's run blitzes where you're really trying to disrupt the run. And if you're a zone team, a lot of time what can disrupt that is just penetration and like slicing and dicing you. Like you're trying to slice and dice them, but like if you can do that to them, I think that's pretty interesting. Like you go through all those statistics and all those kinds of things, and I think you look for things that you can do something about. Sometimes they guess right. Sometimes you guess right. There was a game this year where like there was nothing the Seahawks could do wrong. There's other games you play, you feel like, man, that didn't go our way. But there are formations that are typically either a run or a play action formation. You marry the play action to the run. And so, yeah, maybe the defense could take a lowest common denominator and say, okay, when the back's in the home position, the fullback's in the kind of behind the guard position, and the tight end's on the same side, here's what they don't do. Like they never do this, and then, maybe you can develop a game plan that way. But like, you mentioning week 1, which is the only loss of the season. I think what happened to the Seahawks is they cared so much about what they knew the opponent knew about them. And I think like for me, the best we ever were on offense is where we like really didn't give a damn what you knew about us. Like Mike Holmgren would even say it. I don't care. We'd come to the sidelines and an offensive lineman or a new player on our team would say like, hey, they know what we're running. And Mike, that would like, it was a trigger for Mike Holmgren. He would say, what? You tell them what we're running. We're running right here. You let them know. Like, tell them. I don't care. And he didn't say it like that. But like he was, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, so what? We're going to do it better. Like, that's just what we're going to do. And so I do think that's a mindset where like, you don't, hey, whatever. Do your stupid defense. Study us all you want. Like, yeah, we're either going to run it or play action it. And okay, so what? And like, I just think there's something about we're on offense. We're on offense. We decide. We decide how fast we go. We decide if we slow it down. We decide what personnel's in the game. We decide what we're doing. You don't decide. And that's just the mindset with some offenses. They're on offense. And there's other offenses, they sit up there until the play clock's at 3, 2, 1, and you're hut, hut, hut. Like, oh, you're doing this, audible, hut, hut, hut. Oh, no, audible, change it. And you're passive. And you wait and try to get into the perfect play, and you're trying to draw like a triangle, like, 2 inches over here. Like, that wasn't for me. I would hate to be in the 3-point stance that long. I always try to think of myself as the offensive line. Like I'm sitting in this 3-point stance for 15 seconds and then I got to go block somebody. Like that's not fun. Like let's get up and go and let's dictate. And I don't think the Seahawks did a great job of that week 1. I think they've done a much, much better job since.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things that's been kind of interesting to watch is initially I was seeing that the Seahawks were facing more stacked boxes, 8+ defenders near the line of scrimmage than most other teams in the NFL. And I thought, oh, teams are just trying to take away the run. But what's happened even into this last game is teams that don't normally stack the box, that's not the way they run their defense, are seeing like a huge jump against the Seahawks. And at least from what I can see watching the games, it is the personnel that the Seahawks are putting out there that's dictating to the defense that you have to have an extra linebacker on the field, or you have to bring your safety down because they've got 2 tight ends or they got the fullback. And it's meaning so far that the Seahawks haven't been able to run very well against those looks, but they've been passing really, really well. So I'm kind of curious, like how much were you guys looking to, I mean, you ran what you ran, but were you with your personnel groupings trying to dictate who was on the field for the defense?
Definitely. And you're trying to find basically the just a guy, like the guy that we can pick on. For us, our kind of like our secret weapon, I guess you would say, is 20 personnel. We called it E personnel. And basically we would take out our tight end. So like it was mostly Jeremy Stevens. We take him out. He's kind of a receiving tight end anyway. We take him out. We put Bobby Ingram in. So we'd be in 3 wides with 2 backs. And a lot of people don't do that. And so like the defense, they don't have like this huge playbook for it. They're going to have a plan for the day. We have no idea what it's going to be. We'll see once we get into the game what your plan was. And then once we see what your plan is, we have a bunch of things that we can do off of that. But so for us, that was our way of basically you just take your tight end and you move him out. And now you eliminate a guy from the box. And to just like keep it like as simple as I could say it, if they're playing with 2 deep safeties, we're going to run the ball. And if they're playing with 1 high safety, we're probably going to play action or just drop back pass and throw the ball. And so like sometimes you'll have an 8-man box or a 7-man box, but like you have 7 blockers. And the way you always say it to a running back is you would say, like with the box count stuff, you would say, okay, listen, you have to be your own blocker for 1 guy. And what our scheme is going to do is we're going to try to determine when and where you meet that guy. And like the goal of most running games is for you to get tackled by the corner, the guy who's least likely to want to tackle you. And so like the whole 5-man box, 6-man box, 7-man box, like we could literally be in 4 wides. Okay. So I got to go to defensive personnel, 10 personnel. Okay. Eagle, as I would say, you can be in 4 wides and then they have a 6-man box. You still have a stacked box. That's still a stacked box. There's too many guys. Our run game's probably no good unless you incorporate the quarterback into the run game somehow. So, the 6, 7, 8-man box thing, like to me, isn't always the thing because you could be in like a huge personnel. You could be in 3 tight ends and 1 fullback, and yet it's a stacked box, and yet somehow we have an advantage somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I do think that's sort of a thing. But in the check with me system that most teams in the NFL run, it's all about what you said. It's about box count, number count. Unless you figure out a way to, like I said, kind of figure out a way to go at the shade, find your best double team, or find that one guy that does not want to make a tackle.
All right, Matt, before we let you go, let's talk about this matchup this weekend. Maybe the best looking matchup there will be all season when the Seahawks are in their throwbacks going against the Tampa.
Oh, I didn't know we were throwbacks.
Yeah, and they're going their creamsicles.
Wow, let's go. 76, stand up.
It's going to be a little Steve DeBerg out there. It's going to look great. I'm really curious what you make of this Tampa Bay team because I've watched all their games and I've come away really impressed, especially with Baker Mayfield. And then I look back at them and they're like, they beat the Falcons by 3 when the Falcons missed a field goal. They beat the Texans by 1. They beat the Jets at home by 2. And then they were kind of getting worked by the Eagles. They did come back, but lost that game. What do you make of this Bucs team?
They're like that person that puts off their homework till the last minute. They could have a month to do it. They're going to do it the night before, regardless. They could have a great opponent like the Eagles, and they'll play them close. And then they could have like the worst opponent, and they'll play them close. I think a little bit it's that the identity of Baker. Like Baker is gritty. He's tough. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. He goes into this other mode. No, but I think they're a different team when Mike Evans isn't on the field. I think that's probably I think that's the thing. They got the other kid, Emeka, who's really good, the talented rookie wide receiver. But no, this is a good team. It's a good team. They're the favorite, and they probably will win their division. I think this is one of the tougher games that the Seahawks will have. The throwback unis, that could be a thing, though. Hey, that could be a differentiator for this thing. But now, in all seriousness, I think that Baker is gritty. He's battle tested, much like Sam Darnold. Much like Sam Darnold, they're two guys that early in their career, they weathered some crazy storms, crazy criticism. They probably were crowned way too early, probably got way too much attention. And then they're battle tested. They've got scars. They've got, skin like an armadillo, as they say, stuff's like water off a duck's back to them. And I think that some of that battle testedness shows up later in your career. I think it's showing up for Baker. He's got this like mindset where like, hey, he's been benched. He's been the scout team defensive end for the worst team in football in Carolina. He's not coming off the field under any circumstance. He goes into this other dimension where he sort of thinks about someone who wronged him. Like you saw the thing last week with Steve Wilkes, the coach that, had him playing scout team or whatever, cut him. And he was on a mission to destroy that team. Like, there's something about that in sports. You see it in a lot of different sports. But I just think that this is a little bit like the team has his personality. They've got like Tampa's personality a little bit. I think also this team did learn a lot when Tom Brady was there about like what a standard is, what a championship standard is, and like what expectations are. And not every team in the NFL has that. I think there's certain teams that have that mindset of like, this is what it means to be a pro. This is what it means to do your job with excellence. And this is how to like kind of think big about everything. So yeah, I do. This is a team that I would respect a lot more than a lot of the other teams on the schedule, quite honestly.
Yeah. It really does come across that they just really believe they're going to win every game they play, like no matter what the situation.
Barely.
Last thing, I if you got a sec for it, it's just like, what are you looking at in this game? Like, you've seen both teams. What do you think this game's gonna come down to?
Well, I think one of the things about Baker is that he extends so many plays with his legs. And I sat in so many scouting report meetings on Wednesday mornings with defensive coaches, and they talk about how to stop the opposing quarterback. And it's funny, like sometimes they're like, they're yelling at these like big, heavy D linemen, like, you can't let him outrun you. It's like, he's faster than me. Like, what do you want me to do here? You brought me here to stop the run, and now you're asking me to like not get outrun by like Patrick Mahomes or like one of those guys. Baker isn't that physically gifted. Like, he's not at the combine. He wasn't special in any like metric, any of them. It's just this intangible leadership, this like, I will not be denied quality that he has. And so I think physically and schematically and technique wise, I think the Seahawks can keep him in the pocket. I think they can eliminate him extending plays with his legs and running and doing that kind of stuff. I think they can get the ball out when he's in those circumstances. So where usually I think that's just kind of coach talk, his big plays this season have come from a lot of times that, because what doesn't happen with him, he does not get rattled. Like, that's something, like, it's almost like the tougher it gets, the better he gets. And so if you're banking on him to kind of like, oh, it's loud in here, like, oh, I'm going to cave in. That's not it. But what does happen is he thinks, I'm going to outrun this dude. And it's like, you just believe that you can, like that you're physically not there. So I think that not letting him use his legs to extend plays, big plays, that to me, especially to the right, he doesn't do it nearly as much to the left. So if I'm pass rushing on Baker Mayfield's right, that needs to be different than what it's like on any given Sunday. This week, there's got to be technique and detail and discipline to how you do that.
Love it. Matt Hasselbeck, from Max Strong to Raul Ibanez, all the way up to Baker Mayfield. It's been great as always, man. Have a great rest of your week.
All right. I'll send you a razor, but hopefully you don't have to use it anytime soon. Okay?
It'll go unused, my friend.
Okay.
Take care. All right. That is Matt Hasselbeck, your Seahawks legend, and one of the best to ever put on a Seahawks uniform. And I think he's right. I mean, Baker Mayfield, I enter this matchup with the Bucs with more respect for this opponent really than anyone that they've gone against. I mean, I think that the 49ers, I expected the Seahawks to beat. They didn't. I respected them more after that game, especially the defense and Robert Saleh, than I did before. The Steelers, I didn't think that was that good of a team. And I didn't pick the Seahawks to win that game because I hadn't picked them to win that game before the season. And they looked like a different offense than what I expected them to even try to run in the first week. So I was like, well, I can't logically pick the Seahawks to flip that result now because it looks more confusing after week one than it did before the season. But I didn't think the Steelers were very good. And then the Saints, no. And the Cardinals, I had respect for the defense. I don't have a lot of respect for the offense. That proved to be mostly true and well founded. But this Bucs team, I'll do obviously a much deeper dive on First Look tomorrow. I'll be writing my tail of the tape today up on hawkblogger.com. And I've already done some of the initial, statistical breakdown, and it's a really confusing team because if all you did is you watched them play, you'd be like, that's a Super Bowl contender, period. Like the moxie that Baker Mayfield plays with, the playmaking, the absolute undeniability of him in those moments. Like he just, even in the Eagles game, when that game should have been clearly over, continued to just fight and land punches. And that's the kind of mentality you get from championship teams that have already won a Super Bowl, where they just are like, yeah, we're inevitable, we're gonna win. And you get that from Tampa. But at the same time, the numbers don't really back that up. Again, I'm not going to go into detail on this show on it, but there's some weird things about this Tampa team, and they're facing some serious injury issues. So I'm fascinated about this game. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be a gorgeous game aesthetically. So anyone that has aesthetic issues with Seattle may feel a little differently watching this game because it's going to be gorgeous. But one of the things I got to bring up, speaking of aesthetics, folks, I'm super, super excited about a new partnership. I'm working with SimplySeattle. If you don't know SimplySeattle, you should. It is the absolute best place to get any kind of Seattle sports gear, whether it's Seahawks, Mariners, Huskies, Kraken, Sounders, Storm, like whatever. It is the best place. They have the best stuff. And what I'm showing here on screen is just a small sample of what they've got there. We're going to be partnered through the rest of this season. I got to go to their warehouse yesterday. It was like going to Disneyland for a Seattle sports fan. They had aisles lined with, I tried on probably 24 Mariners hats and Seahawks hats and sweatshirts and all sorts of awesome stuff. And if you use the code HawkBlogger15, you get 15% off. That is a crazy deal. Right now, everything's flying off their shelves. They don't have to give a discount to anybody right now because Mariners stuff, Seahawks stuff is selling really well. You should have seen they were bringing in extra like college students to help do inventory and stock the shelves because so much. There was boxes everywhere. They've been working 24 hours a day there pretty much with the Mariners going crazy. And now the Seahawks looking like they could be really good. So you use code HawkBlogger15, you get 15% off. I got that. Basically, I got most of the things shown here, but I got that Mariners hat. I got the one I'm wearing here. That Josh Naylor shirt, Nails, I think is amazing. I have that now. I as soon as I saw it, I snatched that. You've got the Cal Raleigh go win. Might as well go win the whole bleeping thing. You got all the classic Seahawks throwback stuff. It's all there. So SimplySeattle.com. Link is in the description. Use code HawkBlogger15 to get your discount. And by the way, just a note, you can only use it once. That's how good of a deal it is. So if you're going to go there and load up on amazing gear, get as much as you want in that one transaction to get your 15% off, because you will not be able to use it a second time. Now we're going to do this for a while, so I'm sure we'll come up with other deals at another time, but don't just buy one thing and then come back to it. So, I see people say Sonics gear as well. Don't tell them I'm a Blazers fan. Okay. The Sonics gear did look pretty good though. I will admit, it's been a while, but, yes, there's great Sonics gear if that's your kind of thing. So, I'm really excited to bring, another sponsor and another deal for you guys. And there is some stuff we're working on the charity side as well. Like, we don't have that nailed down, but one of my favorite parts about working with a local sponsor is we can have these kind of conversations about how to do the charitable stuff, which you guys know matters a lot to me. And if you're just joining today and just seeing the mustache for the first time and you're wondering what's going on, this is a Mariners playoff stash. This is a solidarity stash with the Mariners. It's been something that they've done toward the last part of the season. Superstition. I'm going to rock this thing through the playoffs with the Mariners. And then we'll almost certainly go back to the beard, or I will be looking for a new home, as my wife's not a big fan of the stash. I saw I was picking up something at a pharmacy yesterday for my son, and I saw like a dad with he had a little daughter who was wearing these like rainbow boots, and I waved at her and I smiled. I said, "Nice boots." And then I realized as I walked out, doing that with a mustache probably is a little creepy. Like maybe I need to not wave at young kids with a mustache. It's a little off. So great stuff there from Matt, and good stuff this week. My gosh, looking at this matchup with the Bucs, I can't wait. We're going to find out what time this game will kick off in the coming days. It could come down at any point. The other thing to pay attention to today, and I'm actually going to take a look right now, just in case anything has broke while we are on the show, is injuries for the Bucs. So, as of yesterday, their coach said that there were a lot of guys getting MRIs. That include two of their cornerbacks, Jamel Dean and Benjamin Morrison. And I think that's after they've already had some injuries in the cornerback room. And then also running back Bucky Irving also getting an MRI. And then there's an injury, I think, to Greg Gaines, and Tampa, the coach said, a little concerned about depth at cornerback and on defensive line. So there are some injury things to pay attention to. As I'm looking right now, I don't know if I've seen anything about the MRI results coming in. So we'll just keep an eye on that through the course of the day. One thing that changed for the Seahawks from yesterday or Sunday to now is I shared yesterday that they were the number one DVOA team in the NFL, which they still are through the last couple of weeks. And they're the number one defensive DVOA team. They're now the number one special teams DVOA team as well. So number one overall, number one defense, number one special teams. Offense is number 6, which is not bad. They're number 2 in passing offense DVOA, number 2 in passing defense DVOA, number 3 in rushing defense DVOA, and number 19 in rushing offense DVOA. So there is not a ranking below 6th other than rushing offense. So no surprise there that that's kind of the sore thumb that's sticking out in this, what has otherwise been a really strong start to the season and a very complete start to the season. And Mike Macdonald yesterday talked about that there were some of their run looks that they liked during preseason that have not worked during the season. They did some self-scouting. They did some league scouting with the extra time that they got from this quote, like mini bye. We'll see if any of that comes to pass against what is the number one DVOA rush defense in the NFL. Tampa has the number one DVOA run defense in the NFL. Maybe not the week to, blow it up on the run on the ground, but it would be pretty impressive if this was the week where that started to happen. So we'll see what happens there. But just wanted to share, like, that's rare. I've done this a very long time. It is rare to have a team with 3 out of the 4 units number one overall. It's also really rare to have that many top 6 rankings, whether it's passing, running, on offense or defense. Like, these are pretty heady. This is a pretty heady start for the Seahawks. And yes, DVOA does account for opponent adjustments. So this is relative to the schedule that they've had. Another thing I wanted to share, because I know a lot of you guys have been interested, Rylie Mills. Yesterday, I shared some video of him. And this was on Twitter, but I can share it here. Let me just put it up for you guys in case you guys want to see. Why wouldn't you want to see? This is, let me make this bigger and let me put it on screen for you. So this is Rylie Mills doing some rehab on the side of the field yesterday, indoor practice, given the rain that was going on yesterday. So that's a look at Rylie Mills. I know a lot of you guys have been wondering what's going on there. And this is the first time I've seen him doing any sort of rehab before practice. So I think he's making progress. And as I've said before, Mike Macdonald had said that they do expect him back at some point this year. So don't know when that will be, but he's now eligible to come off IR at any time. It's been 4 games, or PUP, I think, in his case. And we'll see what happens there. Seahawks also signed offensive tackle Logan Brown to their practice squad. They had an open practice squad from last week. I think this was from Jacardier Wright going on IR himself. And Logan Brown, for folks that don't know, he is a rookie from Kansas. And so the Seahawks actually met with him at the combine. I think Nathan Ernst, when he was with me at the combine, spoke with Logan Brown, and he played with Bryce Cabledew, their 6th-round pick. So a lot of people actually, if you look at, I'll read you really quickly the draft profile on Logan Brown, because there were folks that had him as a 3rd or 4th round grade. I'm looking right now. This is on NFL.com by Lance Zierlein. He had him as a 3rd to 4th round player. Here's what he said. Traits-based developmental tackle with only 1 full season as a college starter. Brown is high cut, but unusually quick laterally and athletic in space for a player who's so upright. Ding, ding, ding. No wonder the Seahawks are interested. That is what they're looking for in their offensive lineman. He gets to zone blocking landmarks and is forceful with move contact, but his pad level limits his consistency as a man-to-man blocker. His protection improved rapidly in season, but he still needs to develop an inside-out approach with pass sets to learn to recognize rush games more quickly. The bad looks really bad, but the good can look really good. The ceiling and floor are both moving upward, and Brown has early swing tackle value with a chance to develop into an NFL starter. He's a former 5-star recruit. So that's interesting stuff. Had a vertical of 32 inches. So 26 reps in the on the bench. he's an interesting prospect. He's been through a couple other teams' practice squads and didn't last. And I'm not saying this is the next big get, but this was a guy that was of interest to the team during the draft. And for them to get him for nothing, I mean, they got Josh Jobe for nothing, and they got Darian Kendrick for nothing. And there's some other guys that they've got for without spending a draft pick and without having to make a trade that have turned out to be pretty good players. So I'm intrigued. Maybe he could be gone as soon as tomorrow for all I know. You're not going to invest a ton in a practice squad player who just got signed in week 4, but I thought it was worth mentioning because I think this guy has the potential to be a surprise. And like Amari Kite is a guy that speaking of guys they got for nothing, undrafted free agent, had played for Alabama, then to UCF, and made this practice squad and dressed last week in Arizona and got on the field for some snaps. So it is not out of the question that Logan Brown could be a guy that starts to get a little bit of some look because Josh Jones, their swing tackle, missed last week. And I don't know if he'll be back this week. We don't know his situation. And Mike McDonald yesterday was unwilling to talk about any injuries, including DeMarcus Lawerence. So I did not see DeMarcus Lawerence in the portion that I was able to watch practice. Does not mean he wasn't there somewhere. But I'll tell you, like, this is just a guess. My guess continues to be that injury was more serious than the sideline report indicated. Not because someone's told me that, but it's pretty rare for an NFL player to go out and immediately be listed as doubtful and then downgraded to out and have it not be somewhat meaningful. Like, so, it was a thigh. He was chasing Kyler Murray and then went down. It seems likely that there's some sort of strain there. Hopefully it's not a significant one. Hopefully he's back for this week, but if he's not, I do have my eye on that one, and it's one to watch. So, yeah, I think those are the main things. My God, what a terrible slate of Monday Night Football last night. I could not bring myself to watch those games. Ugly stuff. 49ers and Rams. That game is going to be really interesting to watch Thursday night. There's a lot of injuries for the 49ers. It's kind of going downhill for them. There's a lot of consternation among 49ers fans about Brock Purdy. There's infighting going on about Brock Purdy. It's kind of great. I got to admit, don't hate it. And then as far as this game goes, the Seahawks currently are between somewhere of a 3 to 3.5 point favorite. So yeah, I think that's about right. I just don't think this is a team that at any point, regardless of situation, you should go into this game feeling comfortable. Like, this is a legitimately tough out team. This is going to be the next 2 weeks between home against Tampa Bay and at Jacksonville, maybe your 2 toughest out of division games left on your schedule. So let's see what happens there. We have got super chat from Matt McManus, has given 12 Hawk Blogger memberships. Appreciate you, Matt. That is very generous. If you get one of these free memberships, consider paying it forward, giving a free membership to somebody else. Consider upgrading to a club level membership. We'll get you access to the Discord channel. That's where all of our patrons are as well. Patreon.com/HawkBlogger gets you ad-free audio of the show, as well as access to the Discord channel, and verified over at hbtix.com. HBTix is the place where you can go. I get no fees, no revenue. In fact, it costs me money, but that's the place where, as a Seahawks fan, you can list your tickets and make sure that they get sold to a Seahawks fan, or buy your tickets and get them from a Seahawks fan. I've heard from a bunch of folks who we've sold like thousands of tickets at this point, which is really, really cool. And I've heard from folks that they've gotten better deals because they're working directly Seahawks fan to Seahawks fan. They're not paying StubHub fees or other fees. saving hundreds of dollars. So that's not why I'm doing it. And it's always up to the folks involved to determine what the prices are and how they're going to do the transaction. But it is a pretty good place to get a good deal on Seahawks tickets. And this is a great game to go see. My goodness. It's going to be amazing. It'll also be an amazing time downtown because the Mariners are also going to be playing a playoff game at the same time. It won't start at the same time. They'll move the Seahawks kickoff one way or the other, but they are going to be having two stadiums full of fans. I'm really curious what that's going to be like. I've never experienced that, I don't think, in Soto. So I'm really, really curious about what that's going to be like. If you have not already downloaded the Sleeper app, now is a great time to do it. Great place to check up on all of your fantasy sports, baseball, football, soon basketball, real-time chat, all those things. And you know what? You use promo code HAWKS. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right, folks, that'll do it for this episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Tune in tonight at 5 o'clock for the other Hasselbeck, Annabelle Hasselbeck, myself, Rob Staten, and Mike Sean Dugar as we have the CX Collective at 5 o'clock Pacific time. Tomorrow, I'm hoping that we get Brianna Dix on from Tampa Bay. She was awesome during our preseason preview of the Bucs. Hopefully she can come on with us. And then really excited Thursday, welcome on a first-time guest. If you have not watched the Pro Football Focus game review of the Seahawks versus Cardinals, highly recommend you check it out. It's one of the best, I think, versions of outside analysts actually seeing what's going on with the Seahawks. I'm bringing Dalton Wasserman from the Pro Football Focus podcast onto the show Thursday at 8 a.m. So we'll have him, and then we'll have Mike Sando and hopefully Dave Bowling on Friday. We got all sorts of great stuff. And then Wednesday night, we will have Real Hawk Talk with Derek Gebby and Jeff Simmons. So lots and lots and lots of good stuff coming for you. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your day. I'm Brian M. Hauser. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care.